Hello all. So the music you was just listening to now, just now, was by the band Ex Reba, by the lovely Gillian Chatwick, which we'll be speaking to very soon. So thank you all for attending this event. All this, as you know, all the proceeds to this fundraiser will go towards filming a documentary on Isobel's life and the witch trials in Scotland, which will be filmed in the area where she was in Ulden and Nairnshire. So I want to, before we talk to Gillian, I would like to share a quake to all of you and to Isobel herself. Slancheva. Good. And the whiskey that I am actually drinking is by a company called Case 88, and they do various series of whiskies. So they do like a Scottish witchcraft series, and this one is Isobel Gowdie. They also do folklore series and whatnot. What's really cool about the whiskey is that it glows in the dark. It's brilliant, and the imagery on it is absolutely stunning. So check them out. There also might be a sponsor for the documentary and the Kickstarter, which I'll go on about that at the end. So I would love to invite on the lovely Gillian Chatwick. Oh,
hi, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. A bit warm.
Yes.
So it's starting to, summer's come really early in Scotland, as it seems. So, and I'm not
Scottish summer. I've heard about this.
I'm not a fan of heat. So slightest bit, I start sweating. And in the height of summer, I get very grumpy. But yes, thank you for coming on to the live fundraiser. I've just explained to everyone that the song that was just playing was one of your songs from the Isobel Gowdie
Yes.
album, and it's Isobel Gowdie. So I just wanted to ask you a few questions because I love the album. I must have watched listened to it like 1,000 times now. My favorite is the Ex Reaver. I just love the beat to it. So
yeah, that's like the punk song.
yes, well, punk is in my soul. But yeah, like I just wanted to ask, like, what was your inspiration to the album? Like, and it like what is your, so do you have an affinity, like a connection with Isobel yourself on a personal level?
It's a really interesting story, at least in my life, for how it came about. I have been performing under Ex Reverie since, I don't know, early 2000s, and I had another full length, but it was time to make the second record. And I had become friends with this artist, Julia Jeffrey, in, you know, Glaswegian, and
yes, big fan of her work.
Yeah, we had such an affinity for each other. Even I think we met once when I was playing a show at the Captain's Rest, if anyone remembers that, in Glasgow. And we just stayed in touch. And I woke up one morning and I was like, you know, I want the next record to be a concept album. And Julia and I shared a love of like 70s rock and roll, you know, concept records, especially like prog. And so I thought Julia should do all the artwork and we'll have a full gatefold. And so I brought it to her as an idea. And I said, well, what, you know, she was on board. And I said, what should it be about? You know, what is going to be our inspiration for this rock and roll concept album? And she brought Isobel Gowdie into my life. You know, she had grown up listening to, is it the Alex Harvey band? You know, has a song about her.
Big fan.
Yeah, and I have a long history in love of witchcraft, but I had not actually heard of Isobel before. You know, since then, I know there are some people here in America that have heard of her, but it does seem to be like she hasn't crossed the waters quite as much. No. So yeah, so then we really delved in, and Julia sent me a lot of information that she had, and then eventually we bought we both got a copy of the Emma Wilby, I believe. I hope I didn't get her name wrong.
Yeah, Emma Wilby.
So it was just it was a several year process, back and forth, a lot of conversations between Julia and I, a lot of delving into source material that was as accurate as her actual confessions, and then also some, like, you know, real pulpy books that were written sort of, you know, with also inspired by her. So it's a mix. You know, what we worked with was very much what struck us both, you know, the main themes of her story. And yeah, so it just seemed perfect. I mean, that's what I should back up and say, is that when she brought her to me, I thought, this is a figure that deserves an entire album written about her. You know, everything about my experience as a woman, you know, guitar player in music for 20 years. It really felt appropriate to have this like wild, defiant, complicated female just
Oh,
muse.
because
Yeah.
Isabel herself is kind of rock and roll. I find she's
Oh,
a
so rock and roll.
I
Yeah.
love like going over the confessions all the time and reading them.
They're
She really
so
did
intense.
have a talent for storytelling, and I can
Yeah.
imagine with people being so frightened of witchcraft and it being sort of conspiracy against the church and everyday like normal living, her accounts must have been so terrifying to the audience and
Exactly.
the people there at like her court and jury.
Yeah.
So I think she's quite a rock and roll chick as well. I think
Yeah.
if rock and roll was available back then, I think she would dig that. I think she would
I
dig
hope
your
so.
album.
Yeah. I mean, there's a really dangerous and complex aspect to everything about her. You know,
Yeah.
it's not just white light witchcraft, as we know. It's very, yeah, there's this edge to everything, and there's a submissiveness and a dominance and all of these themes that were just, you know, they go beyond just sort of precious ideas of kind of modern witchcraft or something. So there was so much to dig into, and there was so much to make personal, you know,
I
draw personal parallels.
Well, it's like the whole album that you did. I kind of feel
Yeah.
like it's like going through the story of Isabel and what she got up to. Each
Yeah.
like title is about Isabel, starts with Isabel, and
Yeah.
and then it starts with about her familiar, and then
Mm.
the flight, the transformation, the horse and Hadder. And I really feel like definitely a lot of research got involved with you and Julia. And I really feel like when I listen to each song, I am being told, like, led on a journey that tells
Right.
Isabel's story. So, I mean, I come across your album a couple of years ago now when you released it. Unfortunately, I didn't get to get the special edition with the booklet and
Yeah, we
the
sold out pretty fast, which was, I think,
I
also a testament to Isobel. You know,
Right,
that was.
and I just thought when doing this live event, I have to have you like
Thank
on,
you
and
so
I would
much.
have liked. I know she's busy, but I would have liked
Yeah,
Julia on as well because she's a fantastic artist,
she's
and the
amazing.
artwork that went involved in the album. I have one of hers. Well, I have two of her artwork, and one's about Catherine Craggy.
Yeah.
She was a witch, but
Mhm.
she was more of a wise woman that would cure people for free stones. And then she sent me a little freebie one of
Yes.
Isabel. So I was very like her art. You can tell there's a lot of passion and there's a lot
Yeah.
of drive in it. Like you really feel like the art comes alive, sort of thing.
She's amazing. And she was definitely my guide to the Isabel story. And we really, it's like when your book came out, you know, anything Isabel related we spent years with this story. And both of us put so much of our artistic output for a good chunk of time into the world of Isobel. So it's great to have the camaraderie of other people who have delved into this, you know, truly magical figure.
For
Yeah,
me, I feel like
happy.
she captured my heart at a very young age, like back in when I was like in my Wiccan days and
Yeah,
I was a baby witch,
yes,
and the Isabel was someone that always intrigued me. And I think and now like in uni studying ethnology and Scottish history, and seeing so many historians that specialize within witchcraft and folk magic in the university, they are amazed by her, because when you look at witch trials, you might get a few little juicy bits like charms and stuff, but she goes the whole hog. Like she tells you
Yeah.
about what she's doing with the devil, what she's doing
Yeah.
with the fairies,
Everything she's
what
doing with
charm
it.
she uses,
Yeah.
what she does to lame someone, someone to heal. And I felt like when I did my book, like I mean, knowing that she would have, from her social class, she would have been illiterate, she wouldn't be able to read or write. But I wanted to like sort of go through her trial records and be like, is she written a book, a wee black book? Like, what would that look like?
Yeah.
And then it evolved from there. Like, I think it's probably the similar feelings you probably went on the journey of doing the album. Like, you start off with an idea and then it sort of takes its own journey in itself, and then suddenly, I from there, and I was like, well, there's other contents of like historical spells and charms, and I was like, I've got to include this. And then there's like, I did a section about other people accused that transmitted charms and stuff, which by my research, it looks like the Inquisitors are not so much concerned about listening to charms. They wanted to see what they're doing with the devil, sort of thing. To convict them.
It's such an infinitely rich source material to work with. And I should add that through part of the journey of making the record, originally it was supposed to be that Julie and I were going to do it all, an ocean apart. But as we got deeper into it, it just worked out. Fate, or who knows what, brought me to Scotland, and I ended up doing the whole thing with a fully Glaswegian band, and we recorded up in Straven, in this, to me, totally exotic as an American, like totally exotic space in this old mill building right next to the kind of ruined castle. So it took over my life, and it completely, Isobel completely changed my life. And Julie and I have a running joke that we always talk about, where we feel like, the spirit of Isobel was taking a little bit of a tithe. There were a lot of, she was like, oh, you want to make a record about me? Great. Like, you're not going to do that for free. So there was a lot of like, just interesting kind of, hijinks and freak weather patterns and things that felt like we were being taken on a journey as well. So it's like you enter the material and the material enters you. It's a fully interactive dialogue once you go down the road of Isobel.
Definitely.
And in an academic sense, there's so much to learn, but also just in you truly connect with this figure because she's so voluminous. She gives so much that she feels very alive, and she becomes a part of your life.
I remember when I was on the first journeys of writing my book, and I really feel like she's this rock and roll sassy woman, and like you said, like completely get it. It's like, oh, you want to write a book about me, or you want to do music about me, right? Okay, like we'll see how much you want to do this, like almost totally. As if like she's testing your intentions. And there was some trials and tribulations in writing the book, but once I got there, and because I've always had like sort of a spiritual connection with Isobel as a young age, and I say to people I consider as my like spiritual mentor, as a practitioner myself of the magical arts. I feel like, well, I know when I'm thinking of something for like whether I'm going to heal someone or lame someone, then it's that initial inspiration of like, you need to do this and then say that, and I'm like, right, okay, that's Isobel there. Like I can kind of I can sense her flavor in the way she works, like healing in the way she works, like person. So I really feel like spiritually she is the one that sort of plants that little inspiration in my own spiritual practice, and like, you can do this and then say that, and I'm like, okay then. And 9 times out of 10 like it works.
That's amazing. I love that. I had one of the most the most exciting and magical experience of recording of my long career was making this record. And there was a lot of difficult aspects, and I feel like there were some things that were asked to be thrown on this sacrificial fire in order to make the record. But I'm proud of doing something to sort of help you know, like the last lines of lyrics in the last song of the album is kind of about the idea of my takeaway of her sort of sacrificing the easiness of her life in order to be something real, and how, you know, that casts a long shadow, and, you know, you can continue to have an impact on people hundreds of years later if you really pour yourself into being fully honest and fully alive. You know, that was sort of the takeaway. And so I'm happy to be part of any of that can help continue Isobel's, you know, her shadow still being cast and people still being understanding like what the spirit, you know, the spirit that comes through in those confessions.
And it's like, after I wrote my book, like after a year, like quite recently after, actually, like I was like, this doesn't feel like enough. Like I feel like I'm not giving her justice to her story just by, you know, recounting her charms and her magical traditions. And I was like, you know, you see so much. I mean, I looked on YouTube and there's like 3 documentaries on the Pendle Witches. And as much as the Pendle Witches were impressive, like I feel that Isobel's story is just as amazing and fantastical, and for the accounts, like for the so much information she gave about her local folklore, her folk practices, like what her neighbors were doing, and you really get a sense of her community and who she is. And I kind of feel like, well, I mean, one of the biggest mysteries, we'll never know what happened to her. You know, it's always known. Yeah, like it's kind of like she's gone out with a bang, and this, you know, this left that question mark, like, was she convicted? What, did she run away? Because a lot of people did. You know, was she banished? Like, and it leaves that mystery. And yeah, I just feel like her story has to be told, and in a visual sort of way, to just give her justice that she didn't have in life, because you know, she was a crofter's wife, and it's not an easy trade to do. You wouldn't see your husband for like 6 months because he's off with the you know, the sheep in the summer grazing, and you know, and there's so much she has to do at home. We don't know if she had children. And another thing, right, I always find really curious about is that like she used her maiden name in the course.
I didn't know that. That's
because her husband is John Gilbert.
Okay.
And it says in the records in the source book, this Scottish witchcraft source book, that she's married. And I'm like, why is she given like her maiden name? Like, is that to like disassociate her husband, to save her husband? Or it's very bizarre.
I mean, I took that as part of, you know, when you're making art about a historical figure, you also have to find a way to connect it to your own life, I guess, or at least I do. And I really did take that as, I hope I'm not being unfair to the husband, but it seemed to me this liberation that comes through, you know, this like the incredibly raunchy confessions about the devil and the coven, you know, that to me really speaks of breaking free from something, a restrictive relationship, whether that's the case or not. So, you know, maybe that was part of it. As I see her defiance in that perceived act, and also in the kind of information she was giving to, you know, people who were trying to persecute her and potentially kill her. And like just the thought of her being there in that room with these uptight, you know, terrible men, and just being like, oh yeah, I'll tell you what we did, you know.
I kind of feel like she's just like, well, you're gonna kill me anyway, so I might as well give you a good frighten, like before I'm on my way.
Scandalize them and all of that. You know, to me, it doesn't come across as someone who's just giving information to tell them what they want to hear. It comes across as someone who's like, all right, I'm going to blow your mind, you know?
I could kind of like, because I don't know if you watched the video, the music video of, when I read her confessions, I can kind of like visually see her like bringing this theatrical way of telling, like, you know, we did this lips, and like, you know, the
Oh, yeah.
devil's semen was cold as well water,
It's
and
so lurid. I love
you
it. Yeah,
know, and
it's so
like
good.
for any woman that's, or you know, or even men,
Yeah.
hearing that, they're like, whoa, like the devil's semen is well cold as well
Imagine
water.
her saying that at that time to, you
Hmm.
know, witch finders or whoever was doing this. I mean, it's just, it's totally stunning. And I really like the, you know, not to get too deep into it, I guess, but I like the strange S&M aspect of it, that, you know, that there was this liberation for her in, it's a very submissive relationship that she has with the
Yeah.
devil, but it's also seemingly very freeing. And you know,
Hmm.
that, what a you know, just a total mind-blowing theme to find in a confession from that era. I mean,
Uh-huh.
that's some
I
pretty
think it would have made many a bad dream for people in that court, like that
yeah,
night. Like, I think they probably left the candles burning that night, like
yeah,
they
I hope
blown it
so.
out. Like,
I hope so. I hope she completely rotted
I,
down
me
the
too.
bones.
And it's interesting you say that, like, because when you said about that liberation and, you know,
Yeah,
there's that mystery of what happened to her, and the mystery is why she's using her maiden name. And it's interesting you say that, because back then women like were seen as property, like
yeah,
women's rights weren't a thing. Like when you get married to a woman, like there has to be a dowry like involved,
yeah.
you know, money has
You
to
have
be
to get
backed
paid
up
to
with.
take her on.
Yes, exactly. And in
Yeah,
some cases, like in some parts of the world, you know, you can sell your wife, you know, if she's not
yeah,
obedient enough. And I think, yeah, I think up until the, you know, the late 1500s, well, 1600s, you know, in Britain, you could sell your wife. And we're at, like you said, in a world where women have no voice. So I
yeah,
suppose when Isabel is standing up there, she has her voice and
yeah.
she
Right.
wants to frighten them
Yeah,
CUNTs, you
yeah,
know,
yeah, and
and I just love her for it. And it is
yeah,
like what you said, that liberation of like, well,
yeah.
this is my fate. I mean, I do believe she probably was hung and burned because I think they would have deemed her too dangerous to release her.
Yeah, I like to think that maybe, you know, she then just
Escape.
evaporated in a
Yeah.
flurry of, you know, smoke or something. But
Or
it's hard, it's hard to say, but you know, no matter what the results were, it was an incredibly brave act. And I think that we can all appreciate her on so many levels, but it's not surprising that there's been so much art, and particularly like rock and roll and music about her, because there is this
novels,
theme, a theme of I'd rather be bad than be held down, or
submissive.
you know, I'm willing to be dangerous rather than, you know, trapped.
Yes, rather, you know, be liberated and have my own mind than be submissive and follow the herd. And I
Yeah,
love that about her. But
yeah.
yes, thank you so much,
That's
Gillian, for
lovely.
coming on here. And
Thanks for having me.
no, it's a pleasure. So unfortunately I'm gonna have to love you and leave
Yeah,
you.
good
I
luck.
will
Good luck with the
um
documentary.
bye. So I will put you on mute now. I'm afraid, sorry. Um if I can work out how to do this again. Me and technology are not very good. Right. So I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. We will now be playing a recording by the lovely Incubus Succubus of their rendition of the Woman to Hair, which they did several years ago. I think it was the late 90s or mid 90s, from their album Vampire Erotica. So I will do that now for you to all enjoy. And they have been a pleasure to do this recording of this performance, which is amazing.
Hello there. We're delighted to have been asked to be part of this fundraiser to make a documentary all about Isobel Gowdie. She's a fascinating character. There's much we don't know about her. Was she a witch, wise woman, cunning woman, or just a mischief maker? But there's so much we've learned from the documents of the time, and it's fascinating stuff. So I think this documentary will be quite something. So I'd like to raise a cake to Isobel. Here's to Isobel's memory. And this song is one we wrote many, many moons ago, and it's inspired by her spell of shape-shifting from a woman to a hare. And so this is about this. In this one, the witch, shape-shifts from a woman into a cat and a hare, so she moves fluidly between the different creatures so that she can go unseen and find out what other people are up to. So this one's called Woman to Hare.
With magic and with hair.